The next one, to be. Now this is a huge one right here, to be. And again, it comes from the thinking part. Being greater than you are today, I tell them. Be greater than you are today. And what you've gone through does not define the totality of your life. You can be greater than you are right now. You can be greater than your history. You can be greater than the bad things that have happened to your life. And many of the things that I tell them is that, look, I know you don't like school, but it's true what they say. Education is the key out of poverty. Knowledge is power, I tell them. Knowledge is power. And you will see that the people with the power are going to always try telling you what to do because they're going to assume that you have no knowledge. But what's going to happen when you do have the knowledge? You'll be just as equal. Okay? And I tell them, right now, mijo, we are unequal. You are here, and I am here, and I'm trying to teach you, and you are rejecting me, and things like that. But one day, you're going to have the same knowledge that I have, and I'm going to come to you for advice. Many kids will tell them, sir, I want to become a physician. I want to be a probation officer. I want to be a social worker, and I want to be this. I said, okay, good. It starts today. Start thinking like one today. So the idea of making them be more human is very important. And be more human is very important because we see that many of our kids, and families as well, who are going through this culture of poverty, tend to engage in very primitive forms of behavior as well, actually. When our kids, they're doing well, but once they get put behind the door and that middle door closes, they start kicking and hissing and spitting and crying and banging, doing everything. And you look at them, and this is very primitive forms of behavior responding to stress and anxiety, actually. And so they begin to bite on themselves and things like that, and you open the door and it's kind of thing. And they get, what's wrong? I said, I just don't like to be here. I says, why? And you begin to, really break down where the anxiety is coming from. But we see that many of them engage in very primitive forms of behavior, from the stealing from others, from trying to, we see this trying to dominate others a lot, the challenging behavior that many of our boys do. The biggest issue that we have with our boys is that they don't know how to handle male authority. They're always challenging male authority. And again, it goes back to the attachment, the fact that they had no attachment with their fathers. They don't know how to deal with male authority. They know how to deal with women in authority, okay, but they don't know how to deal with men in authority. And this is where one of the things that I talk a lot about is the importance of having more male role models for our boys. Our boys need men in their picture. Last summer, I went to a symposium on suicide, and one of the speakers there asked a question, and he asked the question to the women in the group, and he said, and I didn't like the question, and as a good social worker, of course, I made my opinion known. He says, women, what are you doing to your sons that they're ending up in jail? I said, you're asking the wrong question. Fathers, what are you doing to your sons that they're ending up in jail? But first you have to go look for the father before you can ask him. Okay? That's the problem. I think our women out there who are single parents are doing an amazing job and are trying to do the very best that they can with what they can. But studies have already shown that boys who grow up without a father figure or a positive male role model in their lives are going to have problems with relationships, security, and self-esteem. Okay? And so many of our boys have horrible self-esteem and security. What ends up happening is that they think that they're learning how to be men by seeing other men in their communities, by looking at the behavior of other men in their communities. Lots of violence. We already know that boyfriends are beating up on their girlfriends as young as 13, 12 years of age. Okay. The alcoholism and the drug abuse. One of the things that we see a lot of as well is that when these boys hit puberty, they think that they're men already, and they begin to challenge their mothers the same way that they saw their fathers challenge their mothers. Okay, they become adultified and try to take on very equal roles as an adult. And so that's where we see a lot of challenging behaviors from our young boys, from the boys with our mod leaders there at juvenile detention. Okay, so we're trying to get them to be more human-like, recognize that knowledge is power, recognize that information is a good thing to have, but the right information is a good thing to have. And one of the things that we tell them is that if you go to the wrong person for answers, you're going to get the wrong answer. Because, but I did tell somebody, sir. Who did you tell? Well, I told my friend. I said, was your friend a nurse? Was your friend a psychiatrist or a doctor or a social worker? No. Then you got the wrong answer. Okay, you got the wrong answer. Go to the right person and you'll get the right answer. The other thing that we use there is, if you push the right button, you get the right answer. If you push the wrong button, you're going to get the wrong answer. Because they love to test limits and challenge people in authority. Okay. All right. Now, the last one. And this is perhaps the greatest one out there. And the greatest of these is love. Okay. There's a passage, my degrees are from private universities, so I have a lot of spirituality and religion integrated into what I've learned, and that's how I practice social work. And so there's a passage in the Bible that says, suffer not the little children. And I love using that when working with children and when trying to get other adults who work with children. Suffer not the little children, okay? For such is the kingdom of heaven. But love is one of the greatest and most powerful forces in the universe. Whether it's in our profession, love for what we do, or love for family, or love for the kids that we work with, we need to somehow translate that love to our kids. Many of these kids are yearning for love and nurturance in their lives, but they can't get it. They don't know where to get it. And when somebody approaches them with love and nurturance, they have this huge sense of mistrust toward them. And some of them will challenge you. I'm just waiting for you, sir, to give up on me, because everybody else has. And remember, many of our boys deal better with rejection than with love and affection. Okay? And so, working with children is not an easy job. I suppose there is no other profession that has the highest turnover rates as the profession of working with children. And that's across the board. Social workers, physicians, anybody working with children, it's very stressful. Why? Because children bring out our own unresolved childhood issues. Sometimes we see a child and we see ourselves in that child. And in working with the guards there at juvenile detention, we always try to make them aware of that. Because we do see some of our guards become a little too friendly with the kid. Said, okay, boundaries are getting blurred right here. And you do more harm than good when you blur those boundaries. I was talking to my boss the other day, somebody parked in his parking space. And I said, boss, you need to let them know that they can't park there. Oh, no, that's okay. I'll just go park somebody else. I said, boss, how are you going to teach me? How are you going to teach my peoples here how to respect authority? How are you going to help me keep them from ending up in a place like this if we don't teach them how to respect authority? Okay? It's not a bad thing. That's love. Okay? It's love to teach somebody how to be greater than they are today. And one of those things is teach them responsibility. But, he's up here, I'm down here, and we look at things differently, of course. And so, and I was explaining that to him. I said, well, one of the things that we have to do is teach them how to love themselves, how to respect themselves, and how to have a greater sense of respect for the world altogether, especially of our girls. Remember, again, I told you, our girls are so needy. They are lacking so much love and nurturance in their lives that they are easily fooled by anybody who tells them that they love them. But our boys are also going through the same thing. One of the interesting things that I've seen there at Juvenile Detention Center is that I'll sit down with a boy away from everybody else, and you begin to see that child come out. Okay? They put on such a hard armor, okay, because they have to out in their communities. Even in detention, it's a community in itself, and they know that eventually they'll be released. They'll go back into the neighborhood and meet their peer back out there. So they put on such a huge armor. But when you get them by themselves, they take off the armor and they become children all over again. And I had this one boy who told me, sir, I wish that I could change. I wish I could just get rid of all of this. But I can't, because who else is going to take me? Where else am I going to live? And that's a very good question. Where else will these children go to if not back into their own communities? So even though we do a great job with them individually, eventually they go back to the same community, the same culture that we got them out of. So I suppose that in trying to fix this, we can work with them individually through these 3 interventions here. But we also have to be doing the same thing in the community. And in the community is very hard. Again, time limits is very good. Putting time limits on families and empowering them is very, very, very important. But sometimes we are overloaded with kids and caseloads are overloaded that it's a lot easier to say, here, just take this and go here, as opposed to teaching them kinds of things. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me see, I can't think of anything else. But in everything that we do, especially working with children, love and compassion. When you do those things, you will see that nothing else matters. And even though we may not see the fruits of our labor right then and there, I am hoping that somewhere along the road, some great physician, great scientist, or astronaut will say, I remember a little social worker, or a psychologist, or the probation officer, or something like that. There was an article not too long ago, actually. This man who survived alcoholism and things like that, like 50 years later, I think he became a businessman or something, and they interviewed him, and he said, when I was a boy, there was a social worker who said this to me. So you see, it happens. It happens. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Okay?